Right, we're fishing Essex Manor. I really was on here last season and took another season here. It's a prolific venue with about 60 to 80 fishing and big fish. There's a massive head of big fish in here. Yeah, so the start of the season, actually this is a swim called Mums. I was sitting here, one of my target fish called the pineapple. So a little fish in standards, but fully scaled, beautiful. I had it from this swim to start with, followed up by a fish called Stella, that is one of the biggest fish in the lake, and then the Northern, which is also one of the big fish. I went on throughout the year to catch lots of the bigger fish. I had a fish called Hartail and Wezzos. I had the Northern again, out of a different swim. The Scaling come along. A fish called the Baby Northern, which is another rare fish, and a fish called Popeye. That are really old fish that don't come out an awful lot. Stella is another very well-known fish in the lake. It's got a lot of history, and it's one fish is always on your list to catch. And I fished a little swim called the Swamp that doesn't get fished, and lucky enough she graced my net one morning in there. I believe she was about 45 pounds. Stella is a magnificent fish, dark, and then changes colour halfway down. Can go anything from 45 up until over the 50 mark at the right time of year. So had that fish, second fish in, and when it comes up and you see its head, instantly you know it's that fish, and your heart is in your mouth. I like to go for fish that have got history, that's steeped in history, and the Northern is a fish that lots of people know. It's got a lovely scale pattern and also can get to a real great size. I can't exactly remember the size. I'm more. I like to weigh them, take a couple of photographs, and make sure they go back safe. That's really my part of the fishing. I like the part when they swim off. Another fish that really at the bunch of fish are caught comes to mind is a fish called Hank. It's the first fish of the new year out of the lake, and I had that fish out of a swim that no one would fish that time of year, in a position no one would catch it. Another memory of the season was when I got to the lake one night quite late. I think it was gone 9 o'clock, and sat up in a swim called the car park. In the car park, if you go in there, one will say you've got to fish one down there and one straight and one down to that tree. Well, I fished my own way, and that night I had a fish called Popeye, that is a very old fish, magnificent, lovely scale pattern, followed up an hour later by a fish called the Baby Northern that doesn't come out a lot. Cracking night, really good night's fishing. What really made it special was catching those fish my way. I started the season really, you just want to come over and catch a fish. It's a hard venue that fish don't often come out, and you've got to be here at the right time, the right air pressure and stuff for it to all work. I don't have that advantage where I can look at the weather, look at the pressure, look at the wind, and know they're going to be feeding and be able just to take a couple of days off work and hit the lake. Just to catch one of is my aim. I finished up on 15 fish, and a lot of the larger fish graced me that year. That's why I'm sitting here now and come third in Mainline's Carp Angler of the Year, which is a real privilege. The main advantage from the season was my bait choice. I fished a cell. I've got 100% confidence in it. It's a cracking bait, and it's caught fish everywhere, and you know the fish are going to eat it if they're in front of you. So I used that the whole season. In the winter, I'm just as happy fishing a single cell hook bait to in the warmer months when I put out maybe a kilo. It works in its conditions just as well. It's going to attract the fish in, they're going to feed on it, and it's going to up my catch rate. A good example of the cell is when I caught a fish called Hartail. Again, a lovely dark fish, massive tail. Literally brought my rod in the morning, re-changed my bait and cast, and I think within 15 minutes that fish was on. So it was the instant attraction, picked up that fish. So a typical night on the Manor would be I'd turn up at the lake at around 7 in the evening. I have until 4:30 the next day, so I fish every Sunday night throughout the year, but I'm gone by 4:30 on Monday. So I have to look to do something different to everyone else. We've got lots of anglers on here that fish Sunday to Wednesday in all the main swims, so I started to also pick swims that weren't being fished. So basically, when you come to the Essex Manor, a lot of the anglers will put out a yellow pop-up and fish a bit of bait around it and sit and wait for it. I wanted to be different, so I'd come over. I knew that a lot of the guys are fishing a certain colour, I would use a different colour or no colour. I'd also, to see if there's a lot of bait going out, I'd only put a little bit out, just trying to be different to everyone else. I think one of my advantages, you see a lot of the sticks about where the anglers wrap, and you hear that spots that are 12 wraps and 13 wraps. I'd rather cast and feel for a donk and angle and feel for spots rather than just go to the known spots. To me, they're dangerous spots personally. I think if constantly people are baiting the same place and casting to the same place, I've caught lots of fish by just flicking that single somewhere else. Even if I've got that big bed of bait out, I'll then cast off of it on its own. That seemed to me to pick up the bigger fish. Whether the little ones go in and feed and then you've got the more weary fish outside, that seemed to work for me, casting off the bed of bait. Predominantly I'm a car salesman, fishing is my hobby, so I don't get to come throughout the week. So I can't bait and wait when you cast the bait out and just leave it and you haven't got to reel it in for 3 days. I have to angle, I have to try different spots, try different colours, try different baiting positions. And having confidence in your bait allows you that flexibility of coming over and just flicking one out and knowing that if there's a fish about, they're going to pick it up.